Get ready and start your engine for our 6th annual Aviation Month on Savvy Business Radio with some of the top experts in the aviation community. Pilot Dewey Davenport joins us today to share his love of aviation and his barnstorming business, giving biplane rides to a new generation of folks. If you're in the Ohio area, go take a biplane ride today and enjoy some of old-time aviation. Visit gobiplaneRides.com. Hi, Dewey. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio for our 6th annual Aviation Month. I cannot believe it's been 6 years that we've been having these extraordinary guests and businesses come talk about aviation. And you are yet another person, another amazing pilot. You also have this amazing business I just totally love. I saw you on YouTube for the first time. My boyfriend pointed you out to me, and it's called gobiplaneRides.com. It's fabulous for anyone who ever desired to fly in a biplane, one of those old-timey planes that when aviation first got started. They can do it with you guys. You're also a professional pilot. Share a little bit with our audience about your background, what brought you to the world of aviation, and ultimately starting your biplane aviation business.
Well, when I was a little kid, I started building model airplanes and rubber band airplanes, and then radio-controlled airplanes when I was a teenager. And pretty much since I was a kid, I wanted to fly. And once I turned 18 years old, my parents allowed me to go out and start flying full-size real airplanes at a local airport here in Ohio, in Waynesville, Ohio. And that's where I got my first pilot license. I learned in a 1946 J3 Piper Cub.
Wow.
An antique type airplane. And that's kind of where my heart's been, is just old antique airplanes. So I had a lot of fun learning that. And then I kind of progressed, got my instrument, my commercial, and I started flying for Skydive Green County in Xenia, Ohio, where I flew jump aircraft where skydivers would jump out of them.
Ooh.
And, I did a lot of one-way tickets. No round trips on those flights. Everybody jumped out. But, I did that for about 4 years and built up a few thousand hours. And then I went and flew cargo up in Detroit for USA Jet Airlines. I was there almost 8 years.
Wow.
Where I flew kind of business jet size airplanes, and then some larger like DC-9s, hauling freight and charter.
Wow.
And then in 2008, I was hired by NetJets, and
Nice.
currently a first officer for NetJet Aviation out of Columbus, Ohio. And we're a fractional ownership company that flies business jets, and it's a good job. But
Yeah.
from there, I've started my biplane business, biplane ride business here in the Xenia or Dayton, Ohio area. It's good folk and old time biplane rides.
Wow.
And in 2013, I bought a 1929 Travel Air 4000 and started giving rides around Ohio and Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Virginia, and kind of did what pilots and barnstormers did back in the 20s and the 30s.
Wow. And well, when you got into aviation, is this where you ultimately wanted to be, flying these old birds? Or because it's interesting, I talk, Dewey, to a lot of up-and-coming pilots, student pilots, who are so enamored and intrigued with the new technology, the new birds, the newest and the greatest, and they're not as much interested in flying the old birds. How did it work out for you?
You're exactly right. It's really a dying community.
Oh.
I'm kind of like an old soul, but these old airplanes is really what paved the way to make the new airplanes. And I have to say that there's not too many young adults or even kids growing up that want to fly these older airplanes because they're more intrigued with the new avionics and every airplane that's being built and developed today are very state of the art automated type flying aircraft. So I fly both of the I'm in aviation all the way. I can fly the most advanced aircraft and jets
Mm-hmm.
But then I can, on my off time, I'm out really flying the, you know, the oldest type aircraft that's still flying today. And
wow,
it keeps my skills up.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing, I'm able to take it to places and share the history. You know, I have also a 1930 D-25 new standard, and there's only 8 of those in the world that exist.
Wow.
So being able to tell the history of an airplane like that is really fascinating to a lot of people. And the pilots, even the young pilots today, I mean, they still want to know, how do you get into business jets? How do you get in the airlines? But they still have a little bit of fascination with the old airplanes because the old engines and the instrumentation and things that we have in the old airplanes.
I think they're brilliant. They're magnificently gorgeous. I mean, really, when you look at when I look at like a P-51, I mean, that's a warbird, or, you know, even some of like the bird you're using, it's very simple. There's not a lot of stuff in there to get your mind unfocused. It's really just paying attention to the machine and flying the machine. And I think it's kind of sad that now in aviation, people become so enamored with the electronics and kind of the thing flying in the machine, often the computer, and not so much the thing with the wings, the airplane. And that's where it all started with, you know, us kind of strapping a bird on our shoulders and being the bird ourselves. It's just such a fascinating thing when you can do it. Has it been hard transitioning from both the more modern planes and the older planes, or is just working with the older planes helped you more with working with the more modern equipment?
No, I think I've been able to transition fairly easy. And, you know, in my opinion, to fly the older airplanes is much more difficult than flying any of the newer aircraft. So if you're able to fly the older airplanes and learn how to really fly an airplane by seat of the pants and feel it and smell it, I mean, it gives you the full sense of almost sixth sense. And, you know, when you're into aviation like I am, I'm an aviator. I live it, I breathe it, I dream flying, and it's not really a job. So I fly my airplane that's 87 years old, 88 years old. I enjoy that. I fly it enough to where I know it almost every heartbeat of the airplane and how it runs and how it vibrates. And then when I go to work, it's the same thing. I can get in that airplane and I can run checklists and procedures verbatim the way that we're supposed to in the company I work for. So it's not that difficult. It's just you have to have that passion for it and want to do what I'm doing. I think it would be easy for anybody that wants to do it as much as I want to do it.
Absolutely. It's when it's a passion, it's not a job. And I love that you mentioned that you feel the airplane. It's a part of you. You live, breathe, eat it. Well, I mean, not eat it, but you know what I mean. It's really
pretty much.
Yeah, if you could. But it's an essence of who you are. And I get that. I know I've been out with my partner, and there's a couple times where I've been in the aircraft and I'll feel something's off. You know, the engine won't quite feel right. I'll feel vibrating under my butt and I'm like, something's wrong. And there was a magneto issue. Another time, the engine just sounded wrong with the RPMs. But that's kind of knowing your machine and what it's all about. It goes beyond just paying attention to the flight management system and plugging in waypoints and stuff like that. It's really getting a handle of all the bits, including the electronics, and also the heart, which is the engine, which I think sometimes people can not pay as much attention to. But I always say that you've got to know all the bits of it, because all of that will keep you alive one day if anything goes wrong. You'll know what to do to troubleshoot and figure out what might be wrong.
That's right. It's, you know, the airplane that I'm flying, you know, for work is so automated. Anything happens, we get a chime or a ding, and it tells us you know, what's going on. And sometimes it corrects itself, you know, but when you're flying my biplane, you have to fly by the seat of the pants. And a Barnstormer back in the day, they lived off the airplane, but in return, the airplane lived off the Barnstormer. So they were like partners in business.
Now,
The
what does that
airplane,
mean? What does that mean exactly when you say that? What does that mean?
well,
Mm-hmm.
the pilot lives off the airplane and the plane lives off the pilot. It means that the pilot must take care of the airplane, and
Yes.
the airplane will take care of the pilot.
Got it.
And
Mm-hmm.
and when a barnstormer would barnstorm, they
Mm-hmm.
would go out and offer rides for money
Mm-hmm.
to keep the airplane flying. So they introduced America and the world to aviation well before any commercial travel.
Mm-hmm.
But a very good barnstormer is going to make sure that his airplane is always taken care of, because that is his bread and butter. That is his food. A lot of times they slept under the wing, out in fields and things. So they always have to take care of each other. And that's kind of the way I treat my airplanes. I want to make sure that I take care of my aircraft. I can share them with people, but in return, my travel air, which I named him Ace, Ace always is taking care of me. I was able to go to shows and fly people, make people happy, and that is really what it's all about.
Yeah, you're a close friend, and that's awesome. What would be your advice to, say, an upcoming person who wants to get into aviation? Perhaps I don't know what they might want to fly, maybe majors or whatever. What would be your advice to any up and coming pilot?
Well, it's pretty simple. Work hard, stay focused, and I would say also, make sure you do the right thing. Meet good people, keep in a good circle, and that's going to lead you in the right direction. So every job I've ever received, it's not really what I know, it's who I know. And when you're at a level, having an ATP, 10,000 hours, they know that you can fly, but can you work with people and things like that? And I think that is a very important thing, is being able to really just study, know your material, treat people good. And every pilot out there, we all have a different path. So I can't just say, hey, go get your CFI, start flight instructing, and at 1,200 hours, you're going to go get a job and blah, 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 because I flew skydivers. And that's where I started from. I don't have a college degree. I would say go out and get a college degree if you can. If that's something that you can do, please go do it, because to get on with a major like Delta, FedEx, UPS, you have to have it. The other places prefer it. So that is one thing that kind of would deter my resume. I have a lot of experience, but that one thing is I don't have a 4-year degree is going to hurt me. But if you have that, you're going to the interview table with all your goodies in one bag. You have good flight experience, good personality, and right now with the shortage of pilots, you get on with a good job, a good company, and you can stay there and make it a career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's tremendous advice. I'm glad you said that, because I think sometimes people will just want to get going as quickly as possible. I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to go become a CFI real quick and get as many hours as possible, go straight for the majors. Well, like you said, most of the majors do want a college degree, so that might not be the best thing to do. And also, do you really just want to be a CFI to get those hours and not really help students? Because mind you, it's really huge responsibility to put your name on a dotted line that you're responsible, that hey, I've signed off on this person, they're good to go and fly in that airplane. If they crash, it'll come back to bite you. So you really want to know, is this something I really want? Because there's a lot of responsibility attached to being a CFI.
Yes. I had 1,000 hours when I got my CFI.
Wow.
So I went and got my CFI just because then I wanted to get it. I didn't have to have it or anything like that. And I teach and I enjoy it, but I pretty much teach friends and I teach tailwheel. I have a few thousand hours flying tail draggers. And in my opinion, I think I know what I'm doing a little bit. So I like teaching that. So, I don't like teaching new primary students and things like that, because I just don't have the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everyone's different. I remember I studied dance a million years ago, and there's one guy in my dance school that only did beginner classes. He loved teaching beginners, and it's really, really hard because you're teaching the same thing over and over again, the basics. But there's so many people that will come in, get the basics, but they'll all take it in, the information, in slightly different angles. And he really loved trying to understand how this person's understanding the information, helping them get the basics. And hey, that was his forte. So whatever your forte is, go with it. Now, Dewey, I want to talk about your tremendous YouTube channel. You display not only your flying in the biplane, but you also talk about your excursions jetting around the country. And there's been quite a few cool ones, one coming to New York City, my hometown here. Why did you start the YouTube channel? How did that come about for you?
Well, I started it because about 2 years ago, I had someone call me, pretty much a headhunter, wanted to talk about doing a reality show about barnstorming.
Ooh.
And for really like History Channel or National Geographic and more documentary type shows.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't pan out. And then I started watching stuff about influencers and YouTubers and my buddy Andrew, who's in a lot of my videos. We have fun. So we kind of just play around. And you know, one thing I do my vlogging when I'm out on the road, traveling around restaurants and cities and different things. But then I do some about flying different airplanes, and that I think that's interesting. I don't know, only a couple hundred people or maybe a couple thousand might watch it, but flying the oldest Pete and Poe in the world, air camper in the world, that is pretty cool. You know, flying a new standard, flying a travel air, a day as a corporate pilot. That's very popular because a lot of people want to know how the corporate pilot life is.
Yeah.
You know, with my current job and company, I'm not allowed to really show a lot of stuff, but I can still kind of make it fun and make it a little bit interesting and give you guys a little bit of something that say, hey, that's kind of cool. But, you know, watching Casey Neistat, he's one of my favorite YouTubers, and I have some other friends here, a local kid in Beaver Creek, Ohio, Peter Shrepo. He is a kid that I kind of helped. Well, I didn't really help him, but he used to come to some model airplane shows that I used to host. Well, he was a little kid. Now he's an adult, and he does very well with YouTube. And so I do it just for fun, and I want to share my experiences. And it's like anybody else that's out there. And I'm not a professional filmmaker or anything. I'm a very amateur person. If you watch them, it's pretty amateur, and some of my videos are getting better and better. But I do get to share these old airplanes, my biplane business, which is very popular. And, you know, maybe one day that everybody gets to see it and experience, you know, what it's like to fly in an airplane that's 88 years old. It's
nuts. That's amazing. And I love that you share your experiences, because if anyone is having an idea, like you said, to be a corporate pilot, I talked a number of years ago. This is when I was at space camp. I think it was 15 years ago, maybe. I went to space camp because it was my dream for years and years. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I didn't want to be the pilot, but I wanted to be on the aircraft that goes to space and, you know, explore, do science. And so my friend said, well, if you want to get an idea, if you'd even, well, you're not right, you can't go to NASA, you're too old. But if you ever want to have an idea of that type of business or career, would be something that would even jive with you. And that's before I even thought to fly. Go try space camp. And I thought, well, okay. So I went for 4 days, I think it was, and they immerse you. 7 a.m, you get up, you do some exercises, you're in the sim. I mean, it's tremendous. They make it very detailed oriented. But it was super, super cool to get an understanding, because I thought that there were different things involved. And one guy I met there was a actual 737 pilot. I said, what are you doing here? He signed up to be the pilot of the shuttle. I said, you're a pilot for real. Why would you come to space camp? And he said, just like you, I always wanted to be an astronaut. I fly for the, you know, commercial, but I don't fly for NASA. So, and we got different perspectives of what it might be like if we were working in that capacity that you don't get until you experience it. And your videos gives people that way to experience it that they might not otherwise get.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, since I started, I've had a couple people, I make myself very available. So I tell people to call me, let's talk. Yeah. Let me try to help you out. And I was at Oshkosh this year, and I had this young kid. He wanted to meet me, and we went and talked about corporate flying and careers. And he's 19 years old flying a beach jet. Oh. Well, you don't need to call me and ask for me for advice when you're 19 flying a beach jet around, because I think he already has, everything in order. And, I had another young kid call, and he was flying 135 in a Beech 1900. Same thing. He was like 19, 20 years old. I said, why are you calling me asking me for advice? Because I should be asking you. Oh. You're doing the right thing. So it's kind of cool because they enjoy watching my videos and seeing different things. But it is also very good to talk to them and say, hey, you guys are really doing really well. Yeah. So just keep doing what you're doing, because aviation isn't the easiest road. Mm-mm. You just have to be very persistent, work hard, and build your experience, and you're going to get to where your goals are. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I have been. I feel very blessed with my career. I've got to do a lot of stuff that, most people don't get to do. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it totally is. And it's awesome that the kids were able to come to you and you were open, because really you and whomever comes to you, if they're coming for advice, I think we all can learn more. And they're probably wondering, is there something I'm missing that, you already being in the industry might be able to reveal for me that I don't know already? And vice versa. I always tell people that, hey, even your 5-year-old kid can teach you something.
Yep. You're very, very true. I mean, it's been good because I've been able to build relationships with people I've never met before and things like that. And I've always done a lot of stuff with the community, going to schools, colleges, high schools, elementaries. Every year for 2 years now, I have a coloring book called Ace, the Barnstorming Biplane. Aww. And yeah, it's really cool. But where I graduated high school and I went to school, all the first graders get this coloring book. Mm-hmm. And they read the book, and then they go outside, and guess what? Ace flies over. Oh, and Ace gets to fly over, and then I land. I go to the school, and I meet them. So all the kids get to actually see me and talk to me. And, that's something that I think all pilots or anybody that's in the field that they are passionate about, they should go and try to share it. And I try to do as much as I can. I really do. And that's one thing that's pretty cool. And when you got little kids coming up and hugging you and asking you some really, really funny questions,
that's so cool.
It's pretty cute. Yeah.
When you were younger and you were, going in this direction, did you have any family or friends trying to pull you away from? I mean, I did, but also I'm a girl. They were like, it's so dangerous. You should let you. Did you get any sort of that from family or friends or?
Well, my parents wouldn't let me step foot in a plane until I was 18. Oh. And I mean, I couldn't take an airplane ride or anything. Mm. But when I was 18, they were very open to everything. And my first flight lesson was senior skip day. Ooh. I had senior skip day, and my mom and dad let me go and take a ride or take a lesson in a Piper Cub. So, it couldn't have been any cooler. And they've been very supportive. And, having parents that's very supportive is a big thing. But, flying is very expensive now compared to when I learned, which it was expensive when I learned. But, with inflation and things like that, there's people out there to help. And I was a line boy, so I mowed grass and washed airplanes, kind of traded off flight time for work, kind of made things work that way. But, and I just had great opportunities, going and flying at Skydive Greene County. Jim West, who hired me there, I mean, he really gave me the opportunity to build up flight time. You know, I had very little hours. I was flying a Beech 18 around, and I probably had no business being in the airplane, but, you know, I flew Beech 18s and Twin Otters and Casa 212s, and I started there with 250 hours right after I got my commercial. So
that's fabulous.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, that's what I found, Dewey. I found in this community of aviation that people are really, really willing to help out someone who's serious. And, you know, sometimes you might not have the money, but there's ways if you, like you did, go mow grass, babysit, whatever it might be. But if you really have the passion and the drive, there are people in aviation who want to help someone that they see is serious and really wants to help them make a go of it.
Yeah, that's why I say if you meet the right people, you treat everyone right, good things are going to happen. And I stand by those words because it has happened to me a number of times. And I can't thank Skydive Green County or Jim West enough. I mean, he was like amazing guy. And when I first went there, he said, no, I wouldn't hire you. You got to be a skydiver. You got to be or a woman. He says, well, I showed up the next day. And then I showed up the day after that. And I showed up the day after that. And then eventually he's like, well, okay. You've been here like every day for a week. I guess I can let you taxi. And then, you know, and that's, you know, it's a good thing. You hang out at the airport enough, people's going to notice you.
That's right. Absolutely. Through all of your experiences, not just with the biplane, but through your commercial experience in flying commercially, what has been the greatest lesson you'd say, a takeaway that you've learned so far in your life?
The greatest takeaway.
Greatest lesson.
Probably just meeting people. And I mean, you learn a lot, you know, flying skill wise, learning CRM and, you know, crew resource management.
Yeah.
I mean, that is something that I think I probably benefited the most. But, you know, meeting people and being good with people, because, you know, you have this old mentality, you know, captain rules the machine. You know, this guy's been here 30 years and you got a guy that's been here 6 months. He's afraid to do anything. Well, the FAA and things, they don't teach that way anymore. And so I think with proper CRM and, you know, doing proper standard operating procedures, that's what taught me, you know, a lot of stuff about being very by the book. Another thing, like with my biplane rides, you know, it's in a given day, at a busy day, flying 50 to 80 to 100 people a day is kind of common. So learning that you're getting tired and fatigued, that is another thing that I've learned. And you know, this year I have called, hey, I can't fly anymore. And I think that's hard for any pilot to say, hey, you know, I've had at my limit that I'm not safe. And, you know, I hope I can continue to think the way I'm thinking. You know, the wind's too strong, too much crosswind. I'm too tired. And I've done it 3 or 4 times this year. And I have a friend that helps me fly, Andrew King, and he's always been there when I need him. And he'll fly, allow me to take breaks. And, you know, and that's something that I think is a big part of being a professional, is learning your limits and things like that.
I love that. I love that you mentioned that, because that holds through to any part of business or aviation, to know what your limits are and to not push beyond them. Now, push a little bit. We always want to, you know, you won't grow unless you get a little uncomfortable, but knowing where your limits are. And hey, definitely, if you're exhausted, the cockpit is not a place you want to be. Well, Dewey, it's been so fantastic having you share your experience today and your wonderful, wonderful experiences at your business. Go biplanerides.com. Everyone go there today. It's in Ohio, but you know, you can take a short trip on a plane somewhere and go on over there if you're in Ohio. If not, get on the first plane and go on over there so you can experience old-time aviation today. I just have to thank you again, Dewey, for coming to Savvy Business Radio.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and we'll talk to you guys later.